Okay, Tuesday edition of the After Show. Got Wink and Justice with you. Wink over here on the East Coast.
And Justice on the west coast of the contiguous United States, because as you know, there's more of the United States than meets our boundaries, at least, the continental one.
Oh, yeah.
It is Red Sky at Morning Tuesdays. It seems like there's a red sky every day now, but we just decided to, call it on Tuesday because, there's a storm brewing somewhere in the world, and you can see that by the red sky on the horizon in the morning. And that being said, how are you doing, Wade?
Not bad. It is 77 degrees out there today, and that's pretty much going to match. I'd say it's going to go up to 80. I don't know, maybe. They may hit 80 today. Partly sunny, partly cloudy. Not a bad day out there. Pretty good for New York 21. Remind you to get in the chat. Just go to netrootsradio.com. Scroll down the bottom of the page, and on the right-hand side of the bottom of the page, there is a link to the chat. So click that. Join us there.
And, of course, to the leftish of the chat room link are the donate contribute buttons, and those are placed there because we have to pay the bills, and your generosity it's effective. We're paying the bills, so thank you very much for that.
Yeah, I'd say
here along the banks of the road, I before I get on to the weather, I should also mention that podcasts of the After Show can be had shortly after the live show by way of Spreaker. That's the raw data file. And then the perfected daily file will come later, and that's by Podbean, iTunes, TuneIn. Hey, Wink.
Yes.
Are you manually putting those announcements on social media, or is that like when
they
you
have an auto,
post
they have an auto one, but I also do
like
one myself.
That. Okay,
yeah,
good. Thank
I do
you.
one as well. So,
because I've been noticing that on my timeline, and I've been pushing that out as well. So look for it on social media, and I guess there's a way of bringing it into your inbox somewhere. But thank you for downloading those. We're doing it. We're doing
Trying
it because
to get that done. Yes, exactly. Yep.
Were you going to say something before I mentioned?
No. I'm good. I'm good to go.
Okay. Well, here along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, it says that it's 57, but I think it's more like 60, according to my thermometers. And we're going to be nearly the same as yesterday. We'll be at 92. Not too bad. And not really any chance of precipitation, though it would be nice. It would be nice. And our lows at night will hover around 60. Consider that to be open window weather at night, don't you, Wink? If you're in an area that's considered safe.
Absolutely.
And it looks like we'll be hovering in the low 90s for a few days. And I say a few days because on the weekend we will be climbing to 105. Oops. But that's all right. I love it anyway. I don't know. We're humans. We adapt.
There you go.
Okay, weather from around the world is brought to you by private citizens of around the world who have bought little private weather stations, and they plugged them in their properties around the world. All right, so London is 66 and scattered clouds. Paris is 68, partly cloudy. Rome is 87 and clear, though they do have a weather advisory. I wonder, it must be, right now it's clear. I bet it's for thunderstorms because it's thunderstorm and lightning storm season throughout that part of Europe. Kiev is 84 and clear. Kabul is 92 and clear. Hong Kong is 80 and clear. Tokyo is 82 and partly cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 49. What the hell?
Yeah.
And partly cloudy. San Francisco, you'd expect to be 56 and partly cloudy. And New York is 81 and partly cloudy. Yeah. Well. Don Jr. is Fredo.
Yeah.
Now, people say Don Jr. is Fredo. I actually think that maybe he's Sollozzo. But I'm, you carry on these Godfather memes too much, and you realize, I don't know. I think it's a gang who couldn't shoot straight. But that wasn't as big of a theatrical impact as The Godfather.
Right.
I think if we're going to go with the sort of mob cinema motif, I've mentioned this before. This isn't the Goodfellas. This is more like Donnie Brasco.
Yeah.
You know, the crew and Donnie Brasco bringing back parking meters because everybody's got to be an earner.
Yeah.
Everybody. Now, of course, you've heard of the uproar over Don Jr., right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, well, he met with the Russians, and he brought Manafort and Jared Kushner along. Now, I got to tell you, they make it sound like Jared and Manafort came along just, I don't know, they had no idea what was going on. Manafort, who had already been destabilizing those governments, for Putin,
Indeed, yeah.
right?
Yep.
Over there, in the Crimea and all over. He didn't know what was going on. He had no idea who this lawyer was. I like the idea that they call her a lawyer. Sounds to me like, to jump to a different aspect of this, I've heard it stated, and correctly, that this is the way the Russians work. This lawyer isn't an actual government official, but she is speaking for the Russian government. And that's been presented as peculiar to the Russians. But that's not the case. I mean, we do it all the time ourselves as well. We send private citizens over, just to give a, layer of buffer, right? Because sometimes we are dealing with people we don't have diplomatic relations with, and so we have to go back channel. That's what a back channel is. So, I mean, we just have to be clear about what we're talking about. I'm thinking about that U.S. congressman from Texas who, stood up, basically got the rest of our government to stand up to the Soviets in Afghanistan. Charlie's War. I'm sure you may.
Yeah. Yep.
You're familiar with that. It's, Tom Hanks played the character in the movie Charlie's War. Now, he was, I have to admit, an elected official, but he was going back channel. He wasn't really speaking for the government, but he was, right? But he was also had an agenda, and he's trying to push it forward. And people can say, for good or ill, that he shouldn't have been, precipitating a war with the Soviets by proxy in Afghanistan. But on the other hand, there were some inequities, and it wasn't just about, the Russians there or the Soviets there at the time. But to say that this Russian lawyer, so-called private citizen, and this is peculiar to the Russians, this back channel strategy, I consider it actually to be quite common. But it is also telling. I mean, it doesn't diminish the fact that, apparently our guys are willing to commit treason, because when they say we want to win at all costs, by any means necessary, I guess that means cutting the throat of Lady Liberty.
Yeah, pretty much, yep.
Sometimes you got to do what you got to do so you can get ahead. So why not take the whole head of... Why stop at just decapitate Lady Liberty? Hold it out there like Kelly Griffin, the Griffin girl. Oh, God. Well, that was rather gruesome. I apologize. There's so much going on, Wink. I love the PR guy that apparently set up this meeting with Manafort, Kushner, Don Jr., and I don't know, Natasha, whatever her name is. I like Natasha. I really want to see the big old leggy, Russian spy girls. Don't you? I mean, we were prepared for it even on Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Of course, that was a total satire, and we know what it was. That. Hey, these are the issues that we are attending to today. We might as well get on with it, because we do visit with Chris Reeves later on, and we don't want to dally too much. Hey, Wink, Obamacare insurers are in such a death spiral. they were having the best year yet under the health care law.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, when you're starving something, like the Trump administration is doing, there's a little bit of a delay. The Department of Justice. Now, I just have to jump in here real quick because the article I took this from calls it the Justice Department.
Yeah.
And I am the Justice Department.
Yeah.
That government agency is the Department of Justice. Now, I'm going to start having to send these cease and desist letters, and you might have to pay me some royalties. I'm not even taking a royalty
Right.
for the Justice Department moniker because it just seems kind of like in the public domain to me.
Yeah.
But let's just be clear, okay? The Justice Department is my music show Sunday nights, 8 p.m. on the West Coast, 11 p.m. on the East Coast.
Yeah.
So I only mention this is because it's a way of getting that plug in and advertising my music show.
Yeah. Well, it's
Okay.
still, yeah.
All right. The Department of Justice pushes the Chief Justice of the District of Columbia Superior Court to give jail time to the woman who laughed at then Attorney General Jeff Sessions, because you don't laugh at these people who've been installed by the Russians. There's a new commissar in town, fella. Got that? Got that? And pro-Trump trolls are turning life for national security civil servants into a living hell by using intel given them by the White House. Because the purge isn't just for the TV anymore. Oh, no. This ain't no sitcom. This is real life. All right. For the last half, we are, of course, as I mentioned, visiting with Chris Reeves, also always known affectionately as Tom Servo 433. We're going to have a discussion on how maintaining long-term activism takes sustainability. Can't do it just by fossil fuels. Come on.
No, indeed.
Voter, Get this. Even though Chris Kobach, may be legally prevented from his voter suppression efforts, the impact is profound. Listen to this, Wink. Voters are deregistering over Chris Kobach's voter suppression efforts because they fear their IDs will be stolen,
right,
and used by criminal actors. Well, that's one way to suppress a vote, scare the hell out of people that they just deregister. Then they can't vote. Winning! And the only reason police dump disabled activists from their wheelchairs for protesting is because the police always have a reasonable fear of a deathly attack. Everyone knows that. Come on. All that plus the Connect, Unite, Act, Daily Co's community calendar and more on the after show with that ever so fine fellow over there on the East Coast with his ever so subtle East Coastal elitism. And this guy all the way back over here on the West Coast. And my elitism really is not contained by any geographical boundary. It is boundless. And that's why my name is Justice. And we do this here 5 days a week for an hour-ish in this particular specific and ever increasingly peculiar tear in the fabric of space-time, because who loves you, baby? See, that's what the expanding universe is, Wink.
Yeah. Yep.
That peculiar tear.
Yep.
Ever increasing peculiar tear. And there ain't enough gaffer tape in the universe to keep that from
Exactly.
further. Otherwise, it wouldn't be the expanding universe. Jeez. Okay. Boy, it must be really hard when you're trying to do the bidding of a foreign government and, deconstruct the administrative state. And these results come. This is out of McClatchy, Washington Bureau. And Tony Pugh penned this. New data on the improving finances of the nation's individual insurers are calling into question repeated Republican claims that insurance marketplaces are collapsing under the ACA. For months now, Republican leaders from Donald Trump and Health and Human Services Secretary Tom Price is right.
Yeah.
You can take that either way. Tom Price is right, as in like right on the political spectrum. And I don't know. The Price is right. He can be bought off rather easily, and he has. all the way to House Speaker Paul Ryan have said Obamacare, as the ACA is commonly called, was crumbling on under its own weight and could not be saved. And this week, when Health and Human Services announced a 38% decline in the number of insurers that want to offer coverage next year in states that use the federal marketplace, Price said, "The situation has never been more dire." End quote. But new research released yesterday, Monday, by the Kaiser Family Foundation shows that profitability and other financial measures for individual insurers have dramatically improved over the last year. Thanks, Obama. Now it looks like we're on track to be profitable, and they are on track to be profitable, and they're actually having the best year that they've had since the ACA began. And that was said by Cynthia Cox, Associate Director of Health Reform at Kaiser. Let's see. The share of premiums paid out as medical claims by individual insurers fell to 75% in the first quarter of 2017, down from 86% in the first 3 months of 2016 and 88% in the first quarter of 2015. You know, like they said it would happen, the way they built it. In addition, average monthly premium exceeded monthly pre-enrollee medical claims by roughly $100 in the first quarter of 2017. That's up from about $48 in the first quarter of 2016 and just over $36 in the first quarter of 2015. Throughout their push to repeal the Affordable Care Act, Republicans have said the market troubles in some areas were proof that the 2010 health care law was unraveling and legislative change was needed, especially now that we're deconstructing the administrative state, because there's a new commissar in town, comrade. Trump declared that Obamacare was dead. Remember when he said that? It's dead. It's dead. Just like the mob bosses do. But more like in Donnie Brasco, so let's be clear. And the individual market was in a death spiral, in which insurance offerings disappear as premium hikes force all but the sickest to drop coverage. And then the sickest are dropped from their coverage because that's the way the world works. And Kaiser disputed that there's not really signs of a death spiral here. Well, we know that. Okay. In a letter to McConnell on Monday, 4 Democratic senators, Schumer of New York, Stabenow of Michigan, Durbin of Illinois, and Patty Murray of Washington State, urged McConnell to make common sense reforms, such as guaranteeing the cost-sharing payments, creating a permanent reinsurance program, and finding solutions for areas without insurers. Yeah, McConnell's going to do that. Jeez. I don't know. We could just take McConnell's strategy from the very beginning and instead of calling it Obamacare, call it Connect. You know, Kentucky Connect. Remember that?
Yeah,
that was a very successful insurance program, which was exactly the ACA.
Yeah, it was. Yep.
So I don't know. Come on, Mitch, call it Connect. We'll be fine with it. We'll say Kentucky.
Hell
Kentucky is the reason that we did this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know. How many rubles are in his campaign war chest is what I want to know.
Yeah.
All right. So the industry trade group America's Health Insurance Plans would not comment on the report because, you know, they want it to be a death spiral. I love that death spiral. Thank you, Luntz.
Yep.
All right. Now, I always kind of thought we lived in a democracy. Well, actually a representative democratic republic. And that, free speech was considered to be rather broad. I mean, so broad that the premier constitutional law society in the country defended Nazis' rights to march in Skokie, Illinois, in a Jewish neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right? Remember that?
Yep.
Remember that? Okay. And ridiculing leaders, that's considered, I don't know, it's part of our DNA. You would think. But since there's a new commissar in town, comrade, changes are afoot. This is by Elizabeth Pressa out of Raw Story, a woman who was convicted for laughing at Attorney General Jeff Sessions during a Senate confirmation hearing will learn her fate this week after Department of Justice prosecutors asked the judge to uphold a guilty verdict handed down last month. On June 22nd, Code Pink activist Desiree Ferruz was convicted by a jury trial of disorderly and disruptive conduct. You spoke up in the people's house. No, I didn't. I just laughed uncontrollably. That's even worse. Oh, and picketing on Capitol grounds. Because, you can't protest. You cannot redress your grievances in the people's house, Wink. Not that way. And that was after she laughed at Senator Richard Shelby's assertion that Sessions has a record of, quote, treating all Americans equally under the law. Well, that's laughable on its face. Just don't laugh about it. A lawyer for Ferruz asked Judge Robert Morin to toss out the jury's verdict, arguing it's not proven that her conduct disrupted the hearing. Well, jurors who reached the guilty verdict said it was Ferruz's behavior after her arrest that resulted in the conviction. But the woman's lawyer insists she would not be convicted for asking the officer to explain the reason behind her detention. We did not agree that she should have been removed for laughing, the jury foreman said. In court filings, DOJ attorneys argued the jury could reasonably infer that the laugh was a deliberate disruption. Well, yes, she was there with signs. She was there to protest. But if someone told me that Jeff Sessions has a long history of treating all Americans equally, how could I not stifle the laugh that would emanate from that ridiculous statement? Are you effing kidding me?
Yeah, exactly.
But this is all about showing proper respect. If they had a taser, they would have tased her. For compliance, right? Well, they probably did, but okay.
Yeah, they probably would at least, yeah.
She faces up to a year in prison, not jail, prison, for her outburst. Well, I don't know. Sounds like First Amendment to me. And I don't care about regulations and some sort of law within the place that you redress your grievances to. I don't get it. Well, I know. They're saying this is about decorum. So, since there's a new commissar in town, decorum is a very serious behavior. And if you breach the conduct of what decorum entails, there's a gulag waiting for you. It's only a year. Don't worry. Back in the homeland, they would have given, 5 to 10. You laughed at the dear leader. Anti-aircraft military shell for you. It happens. I'm telling you, it happens. Oh, I better. We're okay. This last one isn't so long. Okay, this is an article also out of Raw Story by Noor Al-Sabai. Before they took to attacking CNN reporters, a group of alt-right trolls decided to take down an assistant to one of Donald Trump's reportedly least favorite national security advisors, Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster. Because you got to know, those military generals have been brainwashed for decades that the Soviet or the Russians are not our friends when, everybody with any sense knows that they are. And, McMaster was shoved down his throat because they got rid of their man, Flynn. According to Foreign Policy, alt-right blogger and former self-help author Mike Chernovich set his sights on Eric Ciaramella, McMaster's assistant, and claimed, without any evidence, that the staffer is pro-Ukraine and anti-Russia and the mastermind behind national security leaks. Wow. The information Chernovich provided on him at times included the minutiae of his lunches and who he was meeting with, and would often cite information that appears to be provided by unnamed White House officials or Trump loyalists, Steve Bannon. I think we might as well include Stephen Miller in that entourage as well. In response, alt-righters began issuing violent threats against Ciaramella and, according to sources close to the situation, caused him to leave his post weeks before his planned departure back to the intelligence agency he worked on before joining the NSC during President Barack Obama's tenure. In his initial attack, Chernovich claimed that his newfound foe's entire life arc indicates he will sabotage Trump and leak information to the press whenever possible, and that nothing in his resume indicates that Ciaramella will put America first. Well, that's debatable. Since, I don't know, is it really treating America first to give us all up to the Russians? And I know that sounds like a conspiracy theory, but I don't know. Everybody was saying collusion is a hard one to prove. I don't think it's so hard to prove anymore. We got members of the Trump family and inner circle meeting with the Russians, and they lied about it to the FBI. The reasoning behind the attacks varies from the alt-right's general disdain for McMaster to their apparent desire to control the goings-on in the White House, especially in a way that favors Trump advisor and former Breitbart CEO. Former? No, he's not. Steve Bannon. And the report suggests that Cernovich's attack on Ciaramella isn't the only alt-right attack on civil servants. Breitbart and Conservative Review have both gone on rampages against what they call Obama holdovers, or staffers who remained in the White House or other agencies from the last administration to the current one, because they're civil servants. After successfully getting Ciaramella off the NSC, Cernovich has now reportedly turned his attention to NSC Deputy Executive Secretary Megan Badish, whom he's accused of similar crimes. Wow. Well, of course, they are putting America first into the hands of Putin, because no one else in America would. Would they? Jeez. All right, let's get to our Gem Hightower break. We'll come back, of course, and go through the Connect, Unite, Act Daily Coast community calendar and have our discussion with Chris Reeves. You are listening to the After Show on Netroots Radio with Wink and Justice, and we will be right back.
Excellent news, folks. Jobs are now plentiful. As the Associated Press put it, the U.S. job market has settled into a sweet spot of steadily solid growth. At long last, then, the American dream is back for working families, right? No. The AP article later admitted that the jobs market still is missing any, quote, broad acceleration in pay. In other words, you can find work, but don't expect to be paid. And forget about such luxuries as health coverage, pension, sick leave, vacation time, and having a regular schedule. These are not jobs, they're jobettes. Most are in service work, from fast food chains to nursing homes and car washes. Nearly all are poorly paid, temporary, and routinely exploitative. So many families have been in dire economic straits for so long that they're now having to take such onerous, one-sided terms of employment as those, which, ironically, increases the power of low-wage corporations. With hundreds of thousands of people scrambling at once to find jobs, the bosses can effectively conspire to hold pay levels down and get away with treating hires as disposable cogs in the corporate profit machine. Indeed, the phenomenally bloated profits they've been enjoying are largely extracted from the labor of these vulnerable workers they underpay. And in a double irony, corporations rationalize the obscene salaries and bonuses they give to top executives by pointing to those same profits the executives are taking out of the workers' paychecks. This is Jim Hightower saying this selfish, self-perpetuating expansion of inequality is no sweet spot of solid growth. It's the sign of a severely sick economy, and it will kill all hope of a democratic America unless we the people rise up to reject the plutocratic profiteers and politicians who are inflicting such deadly disparity on our society.
Need an antidote to the progressive blues? Want some good news about how grassroots folks are rebelling against the corporate powers and winning? Well, here's an easy-to-swallow pill for you, the Hightower Lowdown. Hightower's monthly newsletter will give you the lowdown, even as it lifts you up. It's 4 pages a month, jam-packed with facts you can use, actions you can take, and Jim's own Texas humor, all for only $15 a year. To become a lowdowner, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Okay, we're back.
And indeed, we are back, and thank you for sticking with us. This is the After Show with Wink and Justice. Justice here along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the West Coast. Wink is in upstate New York 21 on the East Coast. Chris Reeves is in the vast Midwest of the vast United States. And our crew are the ethereal creatures who reside in the cloud whose advanced intergalactic technical abilities allow Netroots Radio and thus by extension the After Show to span the globe, the solar system, and for our purposes, beyond. Yes, way beyond. Okay, today's Connect, Unite, Act Daily Codes Community Diary is facilitated, as it is every Tuesday, by the great cartoonist, Eric Lewis. And he has a question about when will Trump resign? And I gotta say, I have this image of being frog marched. So, I don't know. I like to preempt the resignation by something a little bit, I don't don't know. What do the Russians call it? Active measures? We'll see. All right, enough of that. I don't know. Will he resign? Does Trump have the capacity to resign? I think he's the type of person that you got to really take kicking and screaming.
Yeah, pretty much. Yep.
Maybe. At least, with people he thinks that he can bully, he's that way. And then when he shakes hands with Putin, it's like, I'm just a little doggy. Here, lick my hand. Colorado community is having their Cossack meetup potluck on July 16th, 1 p.m. at Colorado Tim's house. Colorado State Senator and the major sponsor of the Healthcare Colorado Initiative, Dr. Irene Aguilar, will be attending, along with State Representative Susan Lontine and Denver City Councilman Mike Flynn. So Cosmail Colo Tim, we know him as Colorado Tim, to attend that event. Also, Denver Cossacks will have their Caffeinating Liberally meetup at its usual fourth Saturday of the month at the Common Grounds Coffee Shop, 44th and Vallejo in Denver on July 22nd from 9 to noonish. And everyone knows it's at the table by the piano. That's where they always meet. In fact, they don't even have to say that anymore. Oh, okay. So Dr. Lori and Gordon, 224, are inviting you to a meetup in the picturesque Shenandoah Valley at Dr. Lori's farm, Saturday, July 22nd. So, and she says that it's just 2 hours from everything. And apparently the center of the universe is in Washington, D.C., because it's 2 hours from there. And that's everything. We all know that. So, for instance, it's 2 hours from Washington, D.C., Richmond, and Roanoke. 1 hour from Charlottesville, and a half hour from Harrisonburg. And it looks like she's got quite a, she calls it property. It's an estate. Come on. Anybody that has like a big old lake.
Right.
I don't know. Okay. Actually, it looks like a river lake of sorts. So do Cosmail Dr. Lori to RSVP. That actually sounds like a fantastic event. And, of course, the Daily Coast Cheers and Jeers annual dinner, Wednesday, August 9th, 5:30 p.m., White Oak Kitchen and Cocktails, 270 Peach Tree Street in Atlanta, Georgia. Cosmail Navajo to attend that event. And there's well over 100 for that, so that'll be fun and games. And Navajo usually gets these meetup places like for the Cheers and Jeers within walking distance of the convention center or the hotel.
Yeah.
Just know that's, for Navajo's walking ability, not the rest of us. She's a hiker. And of course, the Daily Coast Caucus on the official opening of Netroots Nation Thursday afternoon will have the Ask Me Anything About Daily Coast, and that is, of course, August 10th, 2:30 p.m. in the Piedmont Room. And ask me anything about Daily Coast. I think there's going to be a panel of Daily Coast type people just even beyond Marcos. So possible. Are you going to be doing that, or is that outside of your purview, Chris?
Oh, I'll be there for it.
Okay.
So we'll see how that all goes. And, of course, we have our panel for Nuts and Bolts, which this year will be pretty incredible. Christine Pelosi will be the moderator.
That's great.
Will have Aftab Puraval, who is running for Congress in Ohio, will be one of our candidates, and we may still have a special guest. So, you're already talking two big league guests on that panel. So,
no kidding.
People who are thinking about running or want to know something about what it's like to run and succeed, that's a good one to attend.
Just mentioning Christine Pelosi, of course, that's Nancy Pelosi's daughter, and I would run into her and her husband in any number of events, social, political, or otherwise, in the Bay Area when I was there. And I would suggest people follow her on social media, Twitter specifically. She's a great follow, and you can get a lot of opinions, but also a lot of great information about meetups and things that are going on. So do that. Okay, so the last event here I should mention is the Mount Mitchell State Park meetup for the Daily Coast Asheville group and Cosmail Randolph. That's going to be on August 12th from 11 to 6 p.m. at Mount Mitchell State Park, 2388 State Highway 128, Burnsville, North Carolina. And that is your Connect, Unite, Act Daily Coast community calendar for the 11th of July of 2017. So that Connect, Unite, the Nuts and Bolts panel or meetup that you have. That's great. I'm glad that you're having that. So that's a. Do you know what room that's going to be in yet?
Don't know just yet. We'll find out soon. They're still looking to move some panels around, so times and things may still change before they put the official print out. So
okay, well, we'll be
right now we're on Friday afternoon, but that may still move.
All right. Of course, we'll be announcing as we get closer to Netroots Nation and more of these are firmed up. We'll be announcing that during the calendar part of the show. But since we're talking about nuts and bolts, I presume when there's not very many diaries published in the time between we last talked to you, that you must be pretty busy out there driving around and organizing, getting things done. But the nuts and bolts this week was about sustainability of activism. I mean, and before I even read the diary, this is something that's I always thought was hard, because we want immediate results. And we find someone who can get us the immediate results, but we don't think about we still have 4 quarters of the game left, and our quarterback is tired.
Right.
So, and that's what sustainability is sustaining it just past the initial reason for doing what you're doing. Is that the gist of what sustainability is?
No, that really is, and it's also about finding and building leadership for the future. One of the things that too many organizations that don't do this very well is that they develop a core set of people and everything runs through them because they know that they can get the job done and so on. But as a result, you don't build up new leadership. You don't develop people who can take the ball the next step or who can grow it another direction. One of the other things we touched on is, because of that, often you don't build enough diversity in the organization so that you can find, new issues, new energy around it. And one of the things I wanted to address with that is that not only are those things important because it helps make sure that your efforts survive, it also makes sure your efforts grow. If you're offering new opportunities and leadership efforts to more individuals, you help attract young people who can come in and feel as though they're involved. If you do some work on diversity, you make sure that your organization isn't monochromatic or old or young or anything like that. So, sometimes organizations get really trapped in diversity because they'll think that they're what we call a pigeon caucus or a pigeon effort, which are great. Those are things like, and I use that like pigeonholing, where an organization can be, the African American caucus, the Hispanic caucus, the disabilities or those. And as a result, they think, well, we're all uniform. But even within those groups, there's not really uniformity. If you're an African American caucus, your diversity is not just in being oriented towards African Americans. It's about finding people who are young and old and different socioeconomic status and different placement in the community. There's a lot of diversity to be had. If you're a woman's caucus, you make sure that you have people who are not just all white, that your organization is open for everyone to be involved. And that's one of those things where I love the Star Trek phrase, infinite diversity in infinite combinations. There are infinite combinations of diversity around numerous things, but the more you involve or you work to involve those within your organizational efforts, the more sustainable it is, because you're far more likely to find, that outside voice that can help grow your organization with the new ideas that may inspire people. You've got to try and avoid groupthink. And if everybody's coming from the exact same perspective, you get the same ideas over and over again. But it's that outside voice that can sometimes say, hey, have you thought about? And those are the ideas that you don't do them every time, but those are the ideas that can suddenly catch hold, really energize your group and get different people involved. And then the more that happens, what happens next? Your group continues to grow And that's a big part of sustainability. And one of the things that I talk about with activism in this week's Nuts and Bolts is if you work on that sustainability, if you work on making sure that your organization is growing, then you actually have some impact beyond just, the immediate election, beyond, the immediate results. You have some impact as to what happens when that legislator or that elected official goes into office. You are an influencing factor. You now have a voice in the room, and those things are important.
I'm thinking of this is not meant to be devil's advocate, but I'm thinking that what I'm thinking of now in terms of this next assessment is more on issues rather than individual candidates. I've always been, I've never been an advocate of the team of rivals model. Now, of course, what you're describing as sustainability and bringing outside voices is not necessarily the team of rivals, but sometimes I see it fall into that. My experience in both business and other aspects is that then factionalism comes in, and how do you avoid factionalism and still maintain a robust diversity of opinion?
Well, you're leaping way ahead of me in the series.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Tackle that later in August. That's okay. Because that is something we get into, I think, second or third week of August. But right. That's okay. You're right there. So one of the things that happens is, and how you reduce factionalism is that by thinking of your efforts somewhat as a matter of teams, you're all on the same team, but each team can have specialties or focuses, and then there's not a rivalry. The example that I use there is, in football, you have offense, defense, special teams, and then even within those, you've got specialists, the kicking team, the punt return team. You break it up into these little smaller groups, but they're all involved in the same effort. And part of the way that you avoid factional, to have this factions at war is, as long as the factions themselves inside of your larger activism are all working for the same cause, but they feel especially proud of their own efforts, then it tends to work out well. I made the statement 2 weeks ago that kind of leads into this, because you're going the direction I was trying to lead, where I said, I'm not a big fan of saying democratic unity, because that's not really what we're after. We're kind of after a democratic symphony, where we have lots of people who play their own instruments and ideas, and the idea of coming in the end to a grand chorus or musical performance that all works together. We don't expect the oboes to play the exact same thing as the violins. And by getting this all together and giving everyone a reason to feel special about their efforts, you kind of motivate people to be successful. And you eliminate some of the problems that you run into with factionalization.
Now, this may be something else you'll be writing about in the future. I apologize, but
okay.
How in the sustainable model that we're speaking of, when you have young volunteers, they come in so enthused. How do you maintain that enthusiasm over the creeping cynicism that comes in just when you are involved in actually the nuts and bolts of a campaign or an issue?
Well,
how do you sustain that?
That's one of the things that's important. Obviously, you can't offer everyone a role in leadership, but if you find young people who you can put into roles of leadership, even if they're small roles of leadership, and this is where I suggested coming up with projects and those kind of things to hand off to people so that you can evaluate how well their leadership performance is, they're more likely to feel appreciated and involved. And then who are the people that they involve to help make sure that their task is successful? It's the people that are the same age as they are, because that's who they know. So a big part of this is opening the doors a little bit and saying, hey, we're going to give you some individualized leadership opportunities. I'm going to transfer to something here related to this. So last week in Kansas, as an example, we had one of the few town halls anywhere in the country with Jerry Moran came out, and we packed that town hall. It was national news that we had pretty much this small town of Palco ended up flooded under with lots of people from neighboring communities. Well, some of the leadership efforts in making that happen were all by young individuals and people involved in their independent causes. So everyone from Planned Parenthood to Indivisible to PSN, they all came together to help make that happen. But one of the ways that made that really successful is that there was a big reach out to young people to make the effort to do it. And because that leadership by a lot of young people as well as the older people who've been around for a while, so a good, healthy mix, we had a lot of young people turn out in the room, one. But two, those individuals got to go back to their communities and say, hey, there was a big national story, whatever, and I was a part of it, and here's what it was, and here's what happened, and et cetera, et cetera, and they got to take some of the ownership in that. Well, that's the kind of thing that helps keep people involved and active when they feel as though, hey, this happened and they were appreciated for what happened.
Right.
And so that's part of both sustainable activism and immediate activism. You get both at the same time.
Yeah, I worked for, or didn't work, but volunteered for a candidate running in for Congress, actually against Lynn Woolsey, my friend Eric Konigshofer, back in the early 90s. And part of the learning process, he put me in charge of running all the signage out. And after I did that, then I ran teams of canvassers going door to door, because I pretty much learned the whole county, the whole district, because I'm taking these signs zigzagging all over the place. But just that little bit of responsibility of, put me in a pickup with a bunch of signs, plugging them into people's yards. That gave me a sense of, I wouldn't say leadership, but being a part, rather than just a cog. And then you just, you learn your precinct too. You think you know it, but then, or your district, you think you know it until you actually are intimately involved in every alley and nook and cranny of it. Hey, let's move on to Chris Kobach, because I think when he finds out the ramifications of his threats, that he doesn't actually have to do the legislation for voter suppression, he can just make people fear it. People are deregistering from voting because they fear their regular just ID for their credit card and all that's going to be compromised. How do we stem that?
And I think that's something that he knew from the beginning he would get by doing that. And he knew the people that would be much more tempted to deregister would be people who were liberal progressives. Although there are some people, I've had reports of, crazy conservatives who are more afeared of the government. Right. And so some of those are involved in deregistering too. Many states, though, for as much as people say it, in many states you can't deregister. There's not a practice to deregister. You can only lapse off the rolls. And in the few states where it is a possibility, it's not nearly as easy as you would think. So I think part of it is just more threat and banner more than it's actually going on. But I think it can lower the people who are interested in registering for the first time, and that is something he is clearly aware of. And I would say that is a real concern. Anything that moves to slow up the interest of people in registering to vote is bad. So one of the things that will be a big test of this is going to be in Virginia and New Jersey this year, where we do have the big elections for governor and state house and all of those. And in New Jersey, especially, where we can flip a Republican to a Democrat, get rid of, no more Christie is gone, and change that over and see where that happens. But I also think in Virginia, we're going to see a chance to change over some state house seats, especially in the state Senate, and see if we can make some groundwork there, and in the delegate races there, delegates is like their state house. And if we can make some progress on both of those, I think that's a good sign of a rejection of this kind of policy. And then we try and power that through to 2018. one of the things that's been very good about this is it has caused a lot of governors to come out and say, Kobach's full of it. We're not going to do this.
Right.
And I think that's very good for us. I think it's not only very good for us in the fight for civil rights and voting rights, but it's very good, frankly, for Kansas, where Kobach is the favorite to be the Republican nominee for governor. And the more rejections he gets from Republican secretaries of states in other states with out loud messaging, the harder it makes his run for governor here.
Oh, nice.
Because
Good.
whoever runs as the Democrat will immediately point out, this guy's so crazy other Republicans think he's crazy.
Would it be weird if the fringe right wing deregistered and he just didn't have enough of that base to be able to win?
Yeah, I look, I would appreciate that. I don't think he's as worried about that as he is. He's on a mission to do what, I joked with somebody the other day, it's a little bit like the Blues Brothers. He thinks he's on a mission from God,
Right.
To do what? I don't know, to disenfranchise people. But that's what he's really about. And one of the things that we've got to work to change is to make sure he doesn't succeed.
Now, in the couple of minutes we have left, I know that you've been an advocate for disability rights. We've been seeing optics of people in wheelchairs being dumped out by Capitol Police or, in any number of states and jurisdictions. And I get some on my social media timeline that this is an outrage. This has never happened before. But I got to tell you, these optics are as old as the hills, older than me. I remember, people getting dumped in L.A., Berkeley, San Francisco. This is back in, the 70s.
Yeah.
I don't know. I used to think this was some sort of weird Leviticus thing that was rampant in our society, that if someone has an ailment, it's because they didn't live a good life or they're being punished. And some of our authority figures through history seem to have felt the same way. What would cause a cop, let alone a human being, dump somebody out of a wheelchair? What's that all about?
Well, somebody once told me this, and I think it's really true, is that determination Christianity, which sometimes gets preached by those, John Oliver did a show about it, by TV ministers, and it seems to really live and die by the idea of bad things happen to bad people, good things happen to good people. Mm-hmm. And if terrible things have happened to you, then, you're probably a bad person. When we were in Philadelphia last summer for the Democratic National Convention, not dealing with the convention, we were in the city proper out on the night before. One of my friends was, who is in a wheelchair, we were going through the downtown of Philadelphia, and the exit from the wheelchair ramp to the next street was downhill. Oh. So she's in a hand-powered wheelchair because she's mobile. But she knows that the moment she comes off that ramp, there's going to be speed behind her just from this thing called gravity. And she's not, that's just how that's going to work. And so there was somebody who cut in front of her, and she started saying, ma'am, I'm in a wheelchair. I can't stop that easy. And the woman in front of her said, well, what's your problem? And she says, well, I'm trying not to run you over. I'm just telling you, the moment I come off this ramp, I'm going to have some speed behind me until I even up to the other ramp. And the woman turned back and said, well, that's your problem. Stop being so rude. And she said, ma'am, I can't, stop. I don't have a way to, unless I want to tear my hands up. I'm not throwing my arms into my spokes here. I can slow up some, but that's not how this is going to work. And she goes, well, maybe that's why you're in the wheelchair. Oh. And I just thought, yeah, but there is some attitude amongst a lot of Americans, and I wish there wasn't. And so I'm just conservative that, if you're in a wheelchair or you're disabled, then it's something about you or maybe your parents, because maybe if you were born with a disability, maybe it's your parents' fault for doing something while you were, while your mother was pregnant or any of those kind of things. And I've heard this from too many people who are disabled, advocates for disabilities, to dismiss it. So when I see this and people say it's unheard of, I think, well, you just haven't been watching, one.
Yep.
And two, I say, it is troubling, though, not that it's happening now and it's never happened before, because it has happened before, but it's happening now, and instead of the other side, the Republicans, coming out and saying, oh, this is wrong, those people don't represent us, in public, which is what used to happen. Now you've got too many people coming out and just saying, well, it's what they deserve. This is what these people deserve. And that has become acceptable. And I said to someone, how tolerant is this? I said, the most famous example I can think of this is Vietnam vets who protested the war, who were in wheelchairs, who got dumped out of their wheelchairs, on the mall, on the Great Mall, in the 70s. And that was a big national story, and it was one of those where it's like, oh my, agree or disagree with them, they had a right to be there and stuff. And there were conservatives who were like, well, they got, these people are whatever. And then we went away from that and we've said that wasn't okay. But now Trump is bringing it back where people are saying, it's okay, these people just deserve it.
Yep.
This is what they deserve. And I think that's really terrible. One of the things that's really bad for America, and I said this during the campaign, is Donald Trump is waging a war on basic decency. You would hear all the time where Republicans would say the war on Christmas or the war on this and that. Well, Republicans are waging a war on basic decency. These are common respect courtesies that we become used to as a society, that they're basically telling us they don't care. Those things don't matter anymore. They're going to do what they want. Yeah. And I think that's terrible.
It is. We're going to have to take this up again next week. I just, I still hate the optics, but I just wanted to make sure people are clear that this is not new. It's been actually something that we need to fight against as a society. I almost think that, there's a part of human nature that we don't want to see our failures. And if we see someone who's disabled, we think that we failed somehow. So let's hide them. And if they speak up, right, they're breaking the rules. So we just need to get over that because, equal protection and due process for all. That's right. Okay, thanks, Chris. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good.
All right, folks, we're going to bug out of here. Of course, we got Hartman coming up at 6 minutes after the hour. We'll have Gions and Kami and Slowhand Hussein playing in the interim. And stay tuned to Netroots Radio. We will be back here, of course, bright and bushy. Same time, same station. So stay tuned to Netroots Radio 24/7, 365. And why? Well, because who loves you, baby? Okay, Wink. I'll see you on the other side.
All right. We're out.